So I bought one of these little guys off of Amazon, actually in a 2-pack. The other one is in here. This is one of the arc lighters that I made with it. For legal reasons, that's what it is. Rechargeable, it's a charging port, and it's done by a switch, so the elastic bands go around there and here, so that it retracts once you let go, like a button.
First I found a battery that I could charge, and then I soldered some connector ports from that battery right there and soldered it on the other battery so that I could charge it, and then I soldered the switch to the Taser module, and then I soldered it all together and put it in a case. So this is my electric lighter. I have a battery, which I soldered a connector onto from an old RC car battery, which I can use to charge the battery. Then I have a switch, which is covered in the bubble wrap for insulating. And there's a Taser module, which also has the bubble wrap there, so that there's no false arcs on the inside of the case, because we want those on the outside. I also 3D printed a case. The software I used is Onshape, in case anyone was wondering. It's a bit of a weird one, but that's the one that our tech teacher taught us how to use, so that's the one I'm most comfortable with. There are a few design things that I put in here, like the curvature right there to account for the roundness of the Taser module, and some other things, like having the handguard come up just slightly so that when the lid comes back on it, or the cap or whatever that screws on, it sits nice and flush. But that's not very important for this video. Now, I do research, but I like to figure things out on my own first. So the way that I think my module works, my electric lighter, is basically the battery fills up some capacitors, and obviously there's some sort of voltage multiplier in there. But I think it fills it up, and as soon as the voltage is high enough in the capacitors to arc over the air gap and ionize the air, it does that. So the closer the gap, actually the lower the voltage will be, because it doesn't need as much energy to arc the gap. And I can prove this, or at least try to prove it, by shortening the gap of which it has to arc, because, and what should happen is the frequency should increase, because the amps of the battery is always the same, which means it should be filling the capacitor always at the same rate, which means that the only reason that the frequency should increase is because the capacitor is discharging when it has enough energy to arc over the gap. So as you can see, the closer the contacts, the higher the frequency, which means that the capacitors only discharge when there's enough, when it has enough energy to arc over the gap. So the closer the contacts, the less voltage it has. But so now I've got that figured out, I think. But I would like to figure out why a standard arc lighter, not this one, has a continuous arc, because it would need a lot of continuous energy to do that. Now, I'm no electrician, but I did a little bit of research, and to my understanding, this is the schematic of what my mom's arc lighter might look like. So you have the battery at the bottom, and there's like a MOSFET and some other things in there, and resistors and blah, 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 blah. But on the top right, you see the spark gap and the coils. To my understanding, when you add energy to coils, it creates a magnetic field. Now, because those two coils are separated, it creates a potential energy difference, which is otherwise known as voltage. And because there's no capacitors, nothing needs to charge up, which means that arc can be continuous, because it's just the difference, and it's enough to arc across the spark gap to create a full circuit. And the other thing I noticed when I was playing around with this thing, so I was putting things between the two contacts there, and I put some plastic, and what I noticed is, one, it was moving around. I guess the high energy was enough to knock it apart because it's really light. But the other thing is that it was always arcing around the plastic. which got me wondering, why is plastic and rubber, why are they insulators, and why is, aluminum and copper and most metals, why are they conductors? I don't want to drag this video on too long or anything, and I also just can't be bothered to do it right now, so I'll probably make a separate video maybe explaining that.